37 seconds. That's how long Jules Hurst paused before he said the number out loud. The acting Pentagon comptroller sat before the House Armed Services Committee on April 29, 2026, shuffled a single sheet of paper, and told Congress that Operation Epic Fury cost the United States $25 billion. Not a range, not a preliminary estimate wrapped in caveats. A number. Clean, round, delivered with the flat affect of a man reading a utility bill. The room didn't react the way you'd expect. No gasps. A few members checked their phones. Here is what $25 billion means when you strip away the abstraction. It is $417 million per day for 60 days of war. It is $17 million per hour, around the clock, including the hours when pilots slept and drones circled and nothing visibly happened. It is $4,800 per second, every second, from the first strike on February 28th until the ceasefire on April 7th. While you read the sentence, the meter ran another $30,000. For comparison, the entire American military assistance package to Ukraine in 2022, the year Russia launched its full-scale invasion, and the world scrambled to respond, totaled $13 billion. Epic Fury cost more than twice that, in a third of the time. But here's what Hurst did not say, and what the headlines did not print. The $25 billion covers Operation Epic Fury, the air campaign designation for strikes against Iran. It does not include the 3 carrier strike groups repositioned to the region. It does not include B-1 and B-2 sorties flown from bases in England and the continental United States. And most importantly, it does not include reconstruction costs for 9 American facilities damaged across Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, the UAE, and Qatar. When Congressman Ro Khanna asked Hurst directly whether base repairs were counted in the figure, the comptroller said he did not yet have a final number for damage to overseas facilities. Secretary Hegseth, sitting 2 chairs away, declined to clarify. The question was not followed up. 3 sources familiar with the classified damage assessments told CNN the real cost sits between $40 and $50 billion. Hurst's $25 billion is the part that was politically survivable to announce. The Kosovo Air War in 1999 ran 78 days and cost $3.6 billion in today's money. Epic Fury ran 60 days and cost 7 times more. The Gulf War air campaign in 1991 destroyed an entire army in 42 days. For roughly $5 billion in adjusted terms, Epic Fury matched that duration and exceeded it 5-fold. These are not rhetorical flourishes. They are the actual trajectory of what modern precision warfare costs when the enemy has functional air defenses and the ability to shoot back. $25 billion did not fall from the sky. It was assembled over years from appropriations bills and supplemental requests and procurement contracts spread across 100 defense subcommittees. It took a decade to build that arsenal. It took 60 days to spend it. And the man who announced the total paused for 37 seconds first, not because the number was uncertain, but because some numbers, once spoken, cannot be unheard. 3 F-15E Strike Eagles. Gone. Not over Iran, not from enemy air defenses, not from anything the war planners modeled as an acceptable risk. On March 2nd, a Kuwaiti F-A-18 Hornet, an Allied aircraft flying from an Allied base, piloted by a man on the same side, fired AEIM 9 Sidewinder missiles and destroyed 3 American jets in a single engagement near the Kuwait-Iraq border. All 6 crew members ejected and survived. The aircraft did not. The official term is apparent friendly fire. The word apparent is doing enormous work in that sentence. Each F-15E Strike Eagle carries a flyaway cost of roughly $87 million. 3 of them is $261 million, reduced to wreckage by a missile that has been in service since 1976. The AIM 9 Sidewinder costs about $600,000 per round. The exchange rate, attackers' investment versus defenders' loss, was approximately 1 to 400. What the coverage missed, Iranian F-5 fighters, airframes designed in the 1960s, had actually breached the joint air defense perimeter and struck Camp Buehring. In that chaos, with jamming active and IFF signals degraded across a contested battle space, Kuwaiti air defense crews made a decision in seconds. The investigation is ongoing. The jets are not. In 1994, 2 American F-15s shot down 2 American Blackhawks over Iraq. Friendly fire is not new, but 3 aircraft in one engagement from a single Allied trigger pull had not happened since Korea. The alliance held. The math didn't. A $50,000 missile brought down an $87 million aircraft. That is the arithmetic of April 3rd over western Iran, where an Iranian manpads, a shoulder-fired rocket small enough for one man to carry, struck F-15E callsign Dude 44 from the 494th Fighter Squadron. Both crew members ejected. Both survived. What followed their survival cost more than the jet they lost. The rescue operation to extract 2 downed aviators from Iranian territory involved 155 aircraft and hundreds of special operations personnel. 2 UH-60 Blackhawks were damaged during the search. 2 MC-13OJ combat Talons landed on a makeshift strip outside Isfahan, took enemy fire, could not depart, and were destroyed by their own crews to prevent capture. $230 million deliberately detonated in an Iranian field. 4 MH-6 Little Bird helicopters. Same outcome, same reason. Another $16 million gone. 1 MQ-9 Reaper providing overwatch. $30 million more. The final hardware bill for rescuing 2 pilots. Conservatively, $400 million. The pilots came home. The aircraft did not, and neither did the decision to send that many assets into denied territory for a 2-man recovery. In 1995, Scott O'Grady was extracted from Bosnia after 6 days on the ground. His F-16 cost $25 million. The rescue cost nothing in equipment. 31 years later, the ratio inverted completely. One senior defense official described Dude 44's recovery as among the most complex special operations missions in American history. Iran spent $50,000 to make that necessary. On March 27th, an Iranian missile and drone salvo struck Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Among the wreckage left on the flight line was E-3 Sentry tail number 810005, nicknamed Captain Planet by its crew. The radome had separated from the fuselage and was lying on the tarmac. The tail was gone. This was the first combat destruction of an AWACS-class aircraft in American military history. It was also, in a precise and uncomfortable sense, irreplaceable. Boeing stopped producing E-3 Sentries in 1992. There is no factory to call. The replacement program, the E-7A Wedgetail, is running years behind schedule, with first operational delivery to the U.S. Air Force projected no earlier than 2028. Before the strike, 31 Sentries remained in the American inventory. Historical readiness rates put flyable aircraft at roughly 56% of the fleet, meaning approximately 17 airframes capable of flight on any given day. After March 27th, that number decreased by 1 platform that cannot be rebuilt, cannibalized back to full capability, or ordered new. The balance sheet value of 810005 was approximately $300 million. The operational value, 1 aircraft capable of tracking 600 simultaneous targets across a radius of 460 kilometers, has no procurement replacement until 2028 at the earliest. A former E-3 crew member speaking to Aviation Week noted the forward fuselage appeared structurally intact and suggested the engines might be salvaged. The radome housing the AN/APY-2 radar array was destroyed. An E-3 without its radar is a very expensive aluminum tube. The aircraft built to see everything coming did not see this coming. It was parked on the ground when it died. On March 19th, an F-35A Lightning II, the most expensive weapons program in human history, a jet designed from the ground up to be invisible to radar, was hit by Iranian ground fire. The pilot took shrapnel wounds and made an emergency landing. The aircraft survived. The mythology did not. The F-35 program has cost more than $2 trillion across its full life cycle. A single F-35A in the most recent Lot 17 contract runs $82.5 million. 1 hour of flight time costs $33,000. The entire theoretical foundation of the aircraft rests on one premise, that an enemy cannot engage what an enemy cannot detect. Iranian sources claim the weapon that found it was a Majid infrared missile system, a passive seeker, meaning it emits no radar signal, detects nothing but heat. The F-35's stealth architecture reduces radar cross-section to roughly the size of a golf ball. Against a passive infrared seeker tracking a jet engine at full military power, that golf ball is irrelevant. Physics does not negotiate with procurement budgets. In 1999, a Serbian S-125 battery from the 1960s shot down an F-117 Nighthawk, the first stealth aircraft using long wavelength radar that the jet's geometry could not defeat. The lesson was available then. 27 years later, a different physical vulnerability, a different passive system, the same result. One well-aimed shot from the ground ended a $2 trillion assumption. The Pentagon did not confirm what hit the aircraft, but after March 19th, deep penetration missions over Iranian territory were quietly reduced. The aircraft landed. The era it represented did not. The A-10 Thunderbolt II was supposed to be retired. For a decade, the Air Force tried to kill it. Too slow, too vulnerable, too single-purpose for a modern battlespace. Congress kept saving it. On April 3rd, over the Strait of Hormuz, an Iranian surface-to-air missile settled the argument differently. The pilot ejected and was recovered. The aircraft went into the water. The A-10 was designed in the 1970s for a specific nightmare: Soviet armor pouring through the Fulda Gap in central Germany. Its GAU-8 Avenger cannon fires 30mm depleted uranium rounds at 70 per second, capable of penetrating tank roof armor from a diving pass. It was built to fly low, absorb punishment, and kill things on the ground. None of that was relevant on April 3rd. The A-10 was over the strait because Dude 44's crew was still in Iranian territory, and someone needed to provide close air support for the rescue package. It was the right aircraft for keeping people alive on the ground. It was the wrong aircraft for surviving Iranian naval air defenses over open water. One airframe costs approximately $20 million. The GAU-8 cannon alone weighs nearly 2 tons and costs more than some fighters. A 2-second burst of ammunition runs $4,000. The jet that fired it cost $20 million. The missile that killed it cost a fraction of that. In 2003, an Iraqi Roland battery shot down an A-10 over Baghdad. The pilot survived. The pattern holds across 23 years with uncomfortable consistency. The Air Force spent a decade arguing the A-10 was obsolete. The war with Iran extended its service life to 2030. The aircraft the Pentagon tried to retire turned out to be the one they couldn't fight without. 24MQ-9. Reapers in 39 days. 8% of the entire American Reaper fleet gone before the ceasefire. Each one costs between $16 and $30 million depending on configuration and ground systems. At the conservative midpoint, that is $720 million of unmanned aircraft destroyed by a country the Pentagon does not classify as a peer competitor. The MQ-9 was the signature weapon of the post-September 11th era. It flew at 25,000 feet, invisible from the ground, broadcasting full-motion video to analysts in Nevada, who would authorize a Hellfire strike before the target heard anything. It worked in Afghanistan because Afghanistan had no air defenses. It worked in Yemen, mostly, until the Houthis started shooting them down in 2015 and nobody restructured the doctrine. Iran watched that for a decade and built accordingly. The Sayyad 4 and Bavar 373 systems that killed Reapers over Shiraz and Isfahan and Kish Island were not improvised. They were specifically engineered for aircraft flying at exactly the altitude and speed profile the MQ-9 cannot deviate from. What the Reaper losses mean operationally is harder to price than the hardware. Each destroyed drone before a planned strike removed the ISR layer that F-15 and F-35 crews depended on for targeting, threat identification, and real-time route adjustment. Pilots flew into Iranian airspace with less information than their mission plans assumed. The drone that was supposed to make manned aviation safer made it measurably more dangerous every time one fell. The unmanned war was not ended by a technological breakthrough. It was ended by an enemy that studied the pattern long enough and built something cheap enough to exploit it consistently. On April 9th, a Navy MQ-4C Triton began an uncontrolled descent over the Persian Gulf. Flight data showed it dropping from 52,000 feet to 9,500 feet in 15 minutes. Not a sudden explosion, not a combat breakup, but a controlled bleed of altitude that ends in water. The Navy's official explanation was loss of communications. Iran did not claim the kill. The aircraft, valued at $238 million, is on the floor of the Gulf. The MQ-4C is not a large Reaper. It is a categorically different machine, a high-altitude maritime surveillance platform built on the Global Hawk airframe, designed to monitor millions of square kilometers of ocean surface in a single sortie. The Navy bought 27 of them. There is no surge production line. Losing one is not a rounding error. It is 3.7% of a fleet that cannot be quickly replaced and whose mission, tracking Iranian naval movements through the strait, became more critical the day the shooting started, not less. $238 million is the airframe price. The sensor suite adds more. One flight hour costs approximately $24,000. The aircraft that went into the Gulf had likely flown hundreds of hours over the strait in the preceding weeks, watching ships, logging patterns, feeding targeting data upward through chains that end at CENTCOM. In 2019, Iran shot down an RQ-4A Global Hawk over the same strait. Trump authorized a retaliatory strike and then pulled it back with 10 minutes remaining. 7 years later, the same geography, the same class of aircraft, the same body of water. Whether this one was shot down or simply failed, the result is identical. $238 million of irreplaceable maritime awareness, resting somewhere beneath the surface of the Persian Gulf. On April 3rd, an Iranian kamikaze drone found Camp Buehring in Kuwait and destroyed a CH-47 Chinook on the flight line. A second drone struck Ali al-Salem Air Base the same night and destroyed a CH-53E Super Stallion. Neither aircraft had fired a shot. Neither had left the ground. They were killed while parked by weapons that cost between $20,000 and $50,000 each, and the satellite imagery confirming the burned-out fuselages was public within 48 hours. ACH-47F Chinook costs $39 million. ACH-53E Super Stallion costs $40 million. Together, $79 million of heavy-lift aviation destroyed in Kuwait, a country that is not Iran, behind air defenses that were supposed to stop exactly this. The Shahed 136 and its variants, which Iranian proxies and Iranian forces have been flying into targets since 2022, cost an estimated $20,000 to $50,000 per unit. The ratio of attacker expenditure to defender loss runs somewhere between 1 to 800 and 1 to 2,000. No procurement office in the world has an answer for that arithmetic. The same night, 2 UH-60 Blackhawks were damaged during the Dude 44 rescue operation. Another $42 million in damaged equipment. 5 days later, 4 MH-6 Little Birds were deliberately destroyed by American forces in Iran rather than abandoned. The total rotary wing loss across those 72 hours exceeds $150 million. In 1980, Operation Eagle Claw lost 8 helicopters in the Iranian desert, trying to rescue 52 hostages. The aircraft were destroyed by weather and mechanical failure. 46 years later, American helicopters are again burning on the ground in and around Iran. Some killed by enemies, some killed by their own crews. The method changed. The outcome did not. On March 12th, a KC-135 Stratotanker crashed in western Iraq. 6 American aviators died. A second KC-135 in the same incident sustained a serious tail damage and did not fly again during the operation. No Iranian weapon was involved. The aircraft came down in the dark, in contested airspace, under the operational tempo of a campaign demanding constant aerial refueling across 3 carrier groups and hundreds of daily strike sorties. The investigation is ongoing. The 6 are the largest single crew loss of the entire war. AKC-135 carries a replacement value of approximately $52 million. But the KC-135 fleet is not a renewable resource. The airframes were built between 1956 and 1965, and the youngest of them is older than most of their current pilots. On March 27th, the same salvo that destroyed the E-3 Sentry at Prince Sultan also damaged between 5 and 7 additional KC-135s on the flight line. At $52 million per airframe, 5 damaged tankers represent $260 million before a single repair invoice is filed. When Congressman Khanna asked Secretary Hegseth on April 29th whether base reconstruction costs were included in the $25 billion figure, Hegseth declined to answer directly. Hurst acknowledged he did not yet have a final number for overseas facility damage. 9 American installations across 5 countries were struck in the opening 48 hours of the war: Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, the UAE, Qatar. A THAAD radar in Jordan was destroyed. Patriot batteries at Al Udeid failed on camera on February 28th. The bases were supposed to be the safe part. The aircraft parked inside them. The tankers that kept everything else flying. The radar systems defending the perimeter. All of it built over decades. Some of it irreplaceable. None of it adequately protected from an enemy that had been studying the locations for 30 years and finally decided to shoot. Added up, 4 F-15E Strike Eagles at $87 million each, $348 million. 1 F-35. A damaged beyond regional repair, $82 million. 1 A-10 into the Strait of Hormuz, $20 million. 1 E-3 Sentry that will never fly again, $300 million. 24 Meshu Q9 Reapers at an average of $30 million, $720 million. 1 MQ-4C Triton in the Persian Gulf, $238 million. 6 KC-135s destroyed or severely damaged, $312 million. 1 CH-47 Chinook and 1 CH-53E Super Stallion burned on Kuwaiti flight lines, $79 million. 2 UH-60 Blackhawks damaged, $42 million. 2 MC-13 OJ combat Talons detonated by their own crews in an Iranian field, $230 million. 4 MH-6 Little Birds, same outcome, $16 million. The hardware subtotal is $2.4 billion. That is roughly 10% of the $25 billion Hurst announced. The remaining 90% is ammunition. 1,000 JASSMs at $1.5 million each, $1.5 billion. 1,000 Tomahawks at $2 million each, $2 billion. 1,000 Patriot Interceptors at $4 million each, $4 billion. THAAD rounds, SM-3s, SM-6s, several billion more. The missiles fired in 60 days took years to manufacture. The production lines that build Tomahawks and JSSMs run at rates designed for deterrence, not consumption. Restocking the magazines emptied over Iran will take until the late 2020s at current production capacity. The Gulf War air campaign ran 42 days in 1991 and consumed approximately $5 billion in today's money. Epic Fury matched that duration and cost 5 times more. Same desert, different century, radically different price per target destroyed. The magazine is not infinite. The production line is not faster than the war. And the weapons burned over Iran were allocated on every planning document written before February 28th to a different theater entirely. On April 29th, Pete Hegseth sat before Congress and said, What are you willing to pay to ensure Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon? It is a good political question because it has no quantifiable answer. It is a bad analytical question because it assumes the objective was achieved. Iran's nuclear infrastructure was damaged. The highly enriched uranium stockpile was not destroyed. Centrifuge production capability was degraded, not eliminated. Iranian missile launches dropped 90% after the first week, not 100%. The program was set back. The number of years is classified. Independent analysts estimate between 2 and 5. Israel estimated the same range before the war started and called it insufficient then. Khamenei was killed in the opening strikes, according to a Truth Social post from the president and subsequent administration statements. No independent Iranian source confirmed this through official channels. Iran continued to function as a state, negotiate through Pakistan, and maintain coherent military command. A decapitated government does not typically conduct 60 days of coordinated multi-domain warfare and then enter structured ceasefire negotiations. The evidence of what actually happened to Iranian command authority remains incomplete. $25 billion, 13 Americans killed, 400 wounded, $2.4 billion in hardware destroyed or damaged, ammunition stocks allocated for Pacific contingencies depleted. The Strait of Hormuz, as of late April, still functionally constrained. Gasoline in Los Angeles above $8 per gallon. The most expensive 60-day operation in American history was designed to eliminate a threat from a country with no nuclear weapon, and in doing so emptied the magazines pointed at a country with several hundred. The invoice from Iran is $25 billion and climbing. The invoice from that miscalculation has not yet been sent.